sector, with the private sector, with academia, and also with standards bodies and professional institutions and industry groups as well. So we're going to open up another Slido at this point. There's a link there in the chat as well to the Slido login details, and it's also on my screen. There you go. If you go there and just let us know where you're from, which particular sector you're from, rather, so public sector, private sector, academia, or a professional industry body. Our goal ultimately is to increase the skills and expertise of the public sector when introducing building information modelling and information management into public infrastructure projects and programs. So how are we going to do this? Well, in this first session, I'm going to briefly describe what we've been doing so far. Since our launch that Alana just mentioned in March, we've been busy on a couple of things, and I'm going to go through that summary with you now. I'm going to also present the roadmap. The roadmap has been a really big focus of the global network, which defines how we're going to collaborate together as a global community of the public sector and multilateral organizations as well. We're also going to have in this session a brief conversation with two of my colleagues, members in the steering committee from Vietnam and from the Czech Republic, and I'll be pleased to introduce them in a moment as well. So do remember to have a look at the Slido and let us know where you're from. I'm going to now share with you that summary that I described, a summary of what we've been working on. Before I do that, I'd like to just go back in time, first of all, not very far, only to 2010, 2015, and look at what was going on with these national initiatives, these BIM programs, to transform the sector and to advance the benefits for both public sector and private sector. In that period, there were relatively few clustered in North Europe. Of course, the UK and Singapore at around 2011, 2012 issued their national BIM programs. The US had a large public client program as well. The GSA, I believe, was the first. So this wasn't long ago, back in 2015 time. In 6 short years since then, we've seen a tremendous change. We've seen a huge amount of growth in these government industry activities to drive the digital agenda across Europe, Latin America, incredibly across Latin America as well, and in parts of Asia and other parts of the world as well, as you can see here. I should say, this isn't perfect. It isn't perfectly accurate, this map. And if you do have some more information about this, then let us know, get in touch with us, and there'll be links in the chat to get in touch with us. And also, we're going to be talking about the call for knowledge, which will be another area where we'd really love you to get involved and provide us some ideas as to what's happening in your part of the world. So this is the beginning of the Global BIM Network. This increase of activity, especially on the public sector side, really led us to the thought that we should collectively bring all of this together, bring that learning together from over that past 5-10 years, and think about how we can all benefit and move the sector forward. So this is our vision. What have we been working on? Well, first of all, again, as Alana said, we launched in March. We had around 2,000 attendees, 90 countries were participating in that. We have an advisory board for the Global BIM Network, which is primarily comprised of multilateral organizations, the Inter-American Development Bank, Asian Development Bank, and United Nations Ops Team. We also have a steering committee. This is primarily country level, national level representatives from Europe, Latin America, Asia, and North America as well, of course. And most recently, and I'd like to welcome in here Japan and Australia as our newest members. I mentioned the roadmap. We're going to talk about the roadmap in a moment, which has been a really large focus of our activity. But also, another activity we've been focusing on is the Global BIM Network knowledge base. I'm going to talk about this now. This knowledge base is responding to a question. The question is, what is it that the public sector can learn and be informed by with regards to the different approaches of how BIM has been introduced and information management has been introduced into public policy, into public procurement practices, and ultimately into projects. So that's what the Global Knowledge Base is all about. You can take a look at it on the website, and we'd encourage you to have a look. It's structured in this way: national level, procurement organisation level, and project level. It currently has a small set of documents of what we call knowledge artifacts, grouped into these 4 information collections: public leadership, a collaborative framework, meaning the documentation, the guides, the tools, communication and communities. That's all about people and how we've gone about introducing and being inclusive of a diverse range of people in this transformation. And finally, capability and capacity building. So how are we getting this to scale in our country? How are we moving from 1 to 5 to 50 projects to 100 to 1,000 projects so that we can achieve those benefits? Again, have a look at the website there. Please do. And this is where we'd like to ask you to get involved. We've issued a call for knowledge globally. There's links here. There'll be links in the chat as well, which is really to say that we want to grow this knowledge base with your information, with documents that can be publicly shared. There are certain criteria, and that's on the website as well. So the public, they need to be publicly available. They need to be freely available. No charges and that sort of thing. They've got to be valuable and useful, and written in a neutral way as well. So we'd really like you to contribute to that, and we'll be talking about this later on in the session. I mentioned it before as well, that one of the big areas we've been working on is the roadmap. Why do we have a roadmap? Well, we wanted a roadmap because we want to understand what our goal is over a relatively short period of time, 3 to 4 years, for example. And we wanted to think about what are the types of activities that we need to collectively work on. And this is what this roadmap lays out. I'm going to talk about it with you right now. If there are any thoughts that you have, of course, feel free to use the chat, but also feel free to get in touch with us at the email that will be provided in the chat as well, the international@cwb.cam.ac.uk. So, how does this work? Well, first of all, just to explain the layout of the roadmap. First of all, we're heading to the top right corner. This is called a sunray diagram. All of the lines head towards that sun in the top right corner. The goal is, as I said, to increase the global public sector's digital capabilities and capacity. How can the public sector be a strong ally and partner to the global construction industry? As I'm sure you'll appreciate, a highly diverse and important industry, but how can we work together? We have 3 phases along the top: the discovery phase, the development phase, and finally a delivery phase, which is about scale and delivering impact from what we produce. The 4 lines of activity here, I'm going to just highlight those individually. First of all, the leadership line of activity is really about building a coalition of the public sector in the steering committee of the global network. It's about identifying things that we can do, that we can help with to provide support to that wider industry transformation. Community communications, people are at the heart of digital transformation. We talk a lot about technological things and technical things sometimes when we speak about the digital transformation, but clearly it's us that are at the heart of this digital transformation. And so therefore, a significant part of what we'll be doing over the next period will be about engaging people. The collaborative framework, knowledge framework at the bottom there of the screen, that's about the documentation. That's about codifying and explaining the guidance for how we introduce BIM and information management into public projects, into policy, or into procurement organizations, for instance, as well. So that's what the knowledge framework is all about, those artifacts. Capacity building. In many ways, this is a really important part of the summary diagram of this roadmap, is that we're going to be driving the skills and expertise, the know-how, primarily on the public sector side, because again, the reason we started this is because there's lots of learning, and we believe the public sector can really progress to be a strong partner with industry. So that's how the roadmap works. I'm now going to go through each of these phases, starting around the phase one, this discovery phase. What do we mean by discovery? Well, this was our getting to know each other stage. This was about understanding what are our objectives, what are we trying to achieve, and what can we each bring to this global community of the public sector. You'll see here in the leadership lane that we had the formation of our advisory group, the commitment to the network's roadmap, which is where we are now today, of course. You'll see also that on the community side, it was about convening that network, building a community, and creating the structures that we have now. On the knowledge framework, it was the development of that knowledge base with relatively few articles. It's only, I think, about 60, just over 60 artifacts currently. It's still very helpful, but that was the beginning. It was identifying that was a needed development that would help us all, was a really key moment in our discussions that we had as a group. Then we have the capacity building. Now, this again is something we'll evolve, but we're looking to understand what it is that we need to learn on the public sector side. What are the practices and capabilities and capacity that we need to develop? And that's why it's called the discovery phase, is we're learning at this stage. The next phase is now we're moving out of this year, really. We haven't got years on the timeline here, but we're moving out of this period. And we're looking at things like under the leadership column of the network scope. What is it that we're going to really focus on? Of course, there are things, and I think I saw in the chat, things about the broader view. Is this just purely around BIM? Is it broader? Does it include digital twins? We've been speaking about information management. So it's to describe that more clearly, to define that more clearly. So that's what the review of the network scope will be. Developing the work groups. We've been just speaking about how we've got to understand what we need to build. What are the skills, the muscle that we need to develop as part of the public sector? And we will then build the work groups around those. So for instance, public procurement. How do we introduce this into public procurement in a consistent way, in a way that's helpful? The communications will be building that connection out to industry. It's not something we've fully understood or defined how we'd do that as yet. The industry is huge, and we'll look forward to hearing your thoughts on that later on in some of the discussions as well. The final piece of this, of course, is around the capacity building. What we're really about in this phase of the journey is to begin developing those capabilities through the use of the global BIM network. We have the call for knowledge on the knowledge framework to increase that from 60 knowledge artifacts to a couple of hundred or more. So that's really going to help then inform the wider public sector. In order to then use this effectively, in order to then create scale, to move from, we have representative from, as I said, about 12 countries and 3 multilaterals, but to create scale and to be that strong partner and leader in this digital transformation, we need to be able to get that to a much wider audience. And that's what that third phase is all about. It's about developing a long-term strategy for the network. It's about expanding the reach of the public sector membership, developing those new knowledge products to address any gaps that we have, and finally is to roll out that knowledge to a much wider external public sector audience. So we look forward to your comments and thoughts on this roadmap, and we will come back to that later on as well. Now, what I'd like to do is have a conversation with two of my colleagues in the steering committee. First of all, from Vietnam, Binh Ta, and from Czech Republic, Jaroslav Nehyba. Now, this conversation we're going to have. Hello, Binh. Hi, Jaroslav. Good to see you.
Hello.
This conversation, and it's late for you as well, Binh. I appreciate you joining us so late in Hanoi. It must be heading towards 9:30, I'm guessing, for you. Good to see you. So we will be having a conversation now just around what does the global network mean to some of our steering committee members, and in particular, we're going to think about some of the value that Binh and Jaroslav. I should say, first of all, that Binh is head of the BIM team in the Institute for Vietnam, and Jaroslav is director of the BIM strategy development team in the Czech Republic's Agency for Standardization. So good to see you both. Binh, I'm going to start with a question for you, if I can, which is about your journey with the network. You've been part of the network since its formation, and I'd like to just hear your thoughts as to what you found to be useful from the network, in particular for you personally, and
Recording in progress.
In the war, doing it like from their perspective, and then during this event, we also have from you, and then in the region. It happens a lot to have an access to an advantage of a labor workforce. We have a generation of young engineer are focusing on new technology since they were students in university. So our private sector have been involved a lot. I think like impact for our BIM journey.
Thanks, Binh. And we'll come back actually in a moment about the relevance that you see for academia and for the private sector as well for this sort of global community, because I think that's what you're just touching on there. Thanks. Jaroslav, similar question really for you. in terms of how you've seen this affect your work in Czech Republic.
Thank you for my word. Hello, Adam, and everybody here. It's a great honor for me to take part of this network and this event as well. So for me and for my colleagues, it's basically the source for our improvement and our self-confidence as well, because we all are doing more or less the same. And we have different starting points. We have different governmental support, different strategies on the country level. Somebody's running top to bottom, somebody leaving it from the bottom to top to improve the industry. But again, for me, it's very important inspiration for those who are ahead of us. And of course, I want to give back something for those who are slightly behind us, share our experience and our outcomes, which we already made. So it helps me to more assure myself and my team about our priorities, action plans, steps to do. That's what I'm seeing as the main value. And to be honest, sometimes helps me cheer up a little bit, because I can share that I'm not alone in some troubles, knowing that others have the same issues and the same situation, the same obstacles on their country level, so we can share the solutions, how to move forward, because that's the important thing.
Great. Thanks, Jaroslav. I think you touched on a real human aspect of this, which is providing confidence. Sometimes confidence that you're not alone with a particular challenge, but also gives you confidence that you're heading in the right direction with something possibly as well. So that's really, really good to hear. Good. Okay. Just a quick next question. Maybe Ben, if I could come back to you on this one, which is around you mentioned it partly, I think, which is about the relevance to academia and to the private sector. Could you just touch on that a bit more, about the value of the global network that you perceive for the private sector signing up and getting involved?
Yes, I think that everybody evolving with BEAM know the definition of like a common data environment, CDE. So global BEAM network and information with other members. So from the point of view of private sector or academia, joining global BEAM network will enable them to learn about current status of BEAM around the world, from information from public sector. So they can know what is the current state. If a private sector look to have a business abroad, it a great source of information as well. And for academia, collaboration in research, it is very important for the research.
Yeah, so it's. I think in some ways you're describing that actually this is about providing some clarity, isn't it? It's providing some confidence. I'm going to pick up the word that Jaroslav used earlier. In some ways, the benefit of joining and signing up from the private sector perspective is providing confidence about what they're doing and how public sector are proceeding. So it's providing those clear messages between the public sector and private sector.
Yes, and we all know that from private sector point of view, investing in BEAM is quite a commitment. So in order to do that, they need to know what other are doing, and what is the direction that other country or if within the country what government intend to do, because it will impact a lot their decision to invest in BIM and to yes, you're right, to increase their level of confidence on what they are doing,
and help them to work internationally as well, potentially by harmonizing some of that, some of those requirements. Yeah. Great, thank you, thanks Ben, thanks for that. Yaroslav, I had a quick look at Slido. I think our audience is about just over 50%. I think it is private. BIM is just referring to the private sector, of course, academia as well, and standards of bodies, I think around 6%. Multilateral organizations are about 15% in terms of our attendees. So welcome to you all, as we said. Great to have such a diverse group here. Maybe Yaroslav, you could comment on the value of getting involved from the public sector and multilateral perspective, if you could just provide some comments on that.
Yes, I think the 25% for public sector is a great number from my side, because usually in the past was much more lower, this number, and much more. It was much more the private sector involved in this movement. So that's great to hear that this number is getting higher. And of course, we're talking about the information management, as you mentioned at the beginning. So I'm very happy to move that explain that acronym from modeling to management, because it's much more exactly what we feel it is. And when we are talking about management, we need to share. So it's really needed to cooperate between the private and public sector, because the public procurement must be very in cooperative mode with the supply chain. And if we want to help it with the digitizing the processes and the communication, which is the key part of the future value of the efficiency and expected savings, it's much more in that field of the management. It's not about just the data, but it's about the processes and the communication. And it's very, very impacted by the humans, by the people, by the experts and the users which are using the digital tools. So I think it's, again, the sharing the knowledge and creating some, let's say, trustworthy and trust environment between the private and the public sector is very important, and I feel that it's one of the key parts of future success of the BIM. So that's very important to support generally the cooperation and creating the trust, because I feel that both sides creating together something we can call a built environment. So in our country, we really want all of us enjoy it, and we cannot forget that that's our common aim, not just doing the digitizing. The digitizing is just the tool how to live our lives better. So we put that some kind of words in our statement, in our network, and I'm really, really fine with that. So that's how I feel that the private and public sector should cooperate together.
Absolutely. Thanks, Yaroslav. Collaboration is clearly going to be crucial, and getting involved is the first step in that. So we would welcome you to sign up. There's going to be, again, links in the chat as we go, or check out the website and just sign up on the website, of course, as well. You can do that there. If you're also in the public sector and you would like to have a direct conversation with us, then there's also an email that you can get in touch with us on there as well. Yaroslav, Ben, thank you very much for your comments and thoughts, and for being part of the steering committee as well. Good to see you again. Yaroslav, we'll see you later in one of the panel sessions, I know. I'm going to hand back to Alana now as well for those panel sessions. Thank you. Okay, Alana.
Thank you, Adam, and thank you, Ben and Yaroslav, Now we will hear from Global Network colleagues in 3 knowledge exchange panel sessions. Our first session will offer a global perspective on the development of methodologies to uncover the cost benefits of BIM. And now, if speakers for panel session 1 will turn on their cameras, I'm pleased to introduce you to today's speakers. Hello. Representing the Inter-American Development Bank is Claudia Suaznabar, lead specialist in the Competition, Technology and Innovation Division. And representing the EU BIM Task Group is Milena Feustel, co-chair of the task group. Thank you, speakers. You may turn your cameras off now. After we hear from Milena and Claudia, we will have a short discussion session. And now I'm pleased to hand it over to Milena Feustel of the EU BIM Task Group.
Respectively, good morning. My name is Milena Feustel, and I'm glad to be at the first annual Global BIM Network General Assembly and to present our cost-benefit analysis for BIM. As a co-chair of the EU BIM Task Group, I would like to start with a few words about our group, not only to promote our work, but also to invite you for future collaboration. So we are a bunch of representatives from 27 European countries. We all come from public authorities, both procurers or policymakers, and we work on different levels: national, regional, local. We are experts, pioneers, and beginners, but we have one thing in common, and that is that we believe that BIM is a game changer for the construction sector and for our society in general. And we should join efforts to make BIM the new normal standard for all. That's why we see ourselves as a double bridge, connecting the demand side with the supply side and with the enablers too. Our main goals are to increase productivity and sustainability of the EU construction sector, to facilitate open BIM as a common language in the construction sector, to ensure an efficient collaboration between public authorities and the private construction sector. We want to foster standardization, and at the same time, we want to deliver practical guidelines and support to public bodies within the EU. Currently, we work on 5 key objectives within our roadmap. So today's event focuses on our cost-benefit analysis. So I will proceed it with its initiation and implementation, and at the end, I will come back to these 5 key objectives and see how we contribute to these. So some time ago, we identified the demand for public bodies to demonstrate the economic viability for using BIM. In some EU countries, as you might know, there is no top-down approach for using BIM, and there we need to build the business case for each project individually. So we managed to verify the demand. We involved our stakeholders, and of course, we reassured the EU Commission that is a project worth investing into. And here is the key data for the contract. As you see, we started beginning of September, and the duration of the project was just 9 months, which is a very ambitious plan, bearing in mind the corona situation and also the complexity of the matter. So let me give you a quick overview of the structure and outline of the CBA, cost-benefit analysis. It consists of 3 parts: development of the cost-benefit model, which includes methodology and tool. its validation by means of 6 case studies and a handbook explaining the above. And if we have a look at the process, of course, we started with a status quo analysis, then complemented it by an online survey and interviews from our huge network, and identified suitable benefits and costs. So then we started developing the methodology and updated it continuously with the new insights from surveys and interviews. So here is a quick overview of costs and benefits, for example, environmental benefits, savings through facility management, enhanced communication, collaboration, and so on, and the costs, for example, training, hardware, software, consulting costs. So once we had identified the different costs and benefits criteria, we actually, RENA, our contractor, developed a tool and validated it by using 6 different projects from 6 different countries. So we had a huge variety of types and location of the project. So the final step was to write a handbook, because this is the way we communicate. We publish online results, and this handbook includes the methodology, the cost benefits tool explained, and the 6 examples, the case studies in detail for the validation of the tool.
The Cost Benefit Analysis, or CBA tool, has been designed for European public clients with varying degrees of knowledge and experience of BIM, Building Information Modelling, enabling them to evaluate the adoption of BIM in their projects with maximum clarity. This video will guide you through the steps required to calculate the costs and benefits of adopting BIM in public tenders. The CBA tool includes 4 main sheets: the input sheet, the results sheet, and the CBA sheets. Let's have a look at the first section called Preliminary General Information. Let's assume our organisation has no prior experience with BIM and that BIM might be actively employed in 15 projects in a year. The project refers to a new residential building construction project, so here we select New Asset Construction. Let's assume that our project requires an investment for planning and design of about €69,000 and a foreseen construction cost of about €2.2 million. Let's assume our project requires 1 year for the completion of the construction stage and 1 year for the planning and design phase. In this case, we expect that BIM introduction in the organisation will directly affect about 39 employees, considering those from the technical and procurement departments, project managers, and administrative office personnel. Because our project refers to a building, we indicate the gross floor area of the asset, corresponding to about 1,800 square metres. Do expect that the annual cost will be close to €30,000. Next, in question 8, we select whether the BIM coordination is performed internally or externally. We select the latter option, as our organisation has no prior experience with BIM. In question 9, we provide the average salary of the employees in our organisation. In question 10, we indicate that we expect to use a common data environment in the project as required by tender documents. Finally, we also indicate the inflation rate we want to consider during the project period. We select 1, corresponding to basic design. Next, in question number 13, we indicate that the project relates to a building, selecting option number 2. Lastly, we indicate the average national hourly cost for a BIM specialist that is charged to public clients. In this case, we enter €25 per hour. In particular, we counted that the asset comprises about 125 rooms, whose surface is smaller than 25 square metres. So, we select yes, then consider the rooms belonging to this range as being, on average, moderately complex, as they involve some details needing to be modelled. Therefore, we select 2 as the level of complexity. Lastly, we select 125 here. With the same logic, we counted the areas belonging to the other surface size ranges, and we also add 4 areas with a surface comprised between 150 and 300 square metres, representing the building facades, and an area with a surface larger than 300 square metres corresponding to the roof. All these surfaces, we believe, are relatively easy to be modelled. To complete this section, we finally select the average level of standardisation of the asset areas, following the guidelines appearing in the pop-up window. For example, Let's assume that our asset is composed of a set of standard housing units which are very similar to each other, so we select the standardization level of 3. In this case, we start by indicating yes for the mechanical system and, with an approach similar to the one adopted in the previous section, we evaluate the level of complexity of each system. In this case, we believe the system is not very complex, so we select 1. Lastly, for each system, we must consider the surface area of the building served by the system. In our case, this system is estimated to occupy an area of about 1,200 square meters, so we select option number 2. The same logic applies to the other systems. Here we can select the scenario we would like to consider, the baseline one, the pessimistic, or the optimistic ones. In this case, the overall project benefit cost ratio is higher than 1, and the associated net present value is positive. In this sense, the adoption of BIM in this case study is expected to be advantageous and sustainable. The layout of results for BIM Maturity Level 2 mirrors the BIM Maturity Level 1 results. To understand how the indicators and the values reported in this page have been obtained, it might be useful to check the pages dedicated to the cost-benefit analysis. At the top left of this page, it's possible to select the phase we'd like to focus on, but let's select all phases so we can view the entire page. Here, the inflation rate applied to the cost-benefit analysis indicated in the input page is reported. For each cost and benefit, you can select whether the indicator must be included or excluded from the analysis. Let's assume that our organization does not need any investment in hardware upgrades, as we believe our current equipment already enables the proper adoption of BIM in the project. In this case, we select off. Some lines are dedicated to computing each year's total benefits and costs and their difference. An ad hoc cash flow is generated in this line, and this enables the computation of
Hello and welcome to Pronunciation Live from BBC.